Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. This is Agatha from FAIA. Just wanted to go ahead and start the presentation. We've got a couple more people going to join us this morning, so we're going to get started right at 11. It's in about 4 minutes, so everybody hang tight.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Grady. I'm the President and CEO of the Florida Association of Insurance Agents. We're happy to have all of you on the call today to be introduced to Attune through Independent Market Solutions. Today we've got agents in New Jersey, North Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida on the call to learn about this new market, not so new, but relatively new to IMS. We're delighted to have this opportunity. Attune contracted with Independent Market Solutions. I think it's been about 3 months ago, and we've already started writing some business, certainly here in Florida. Our members report that it is a market that really works. So for the appetite that they will outline on this call, when you have a client like that, this product really works, and we're delighted to have Brett Ender with us from Attune, and Brett is going to take you through the slide presentation, and there will be time for questions and answers at the end of the webinar. So thanks, Brett. I'll hand it off to you.
Hey, Jeff, thanks so much. And I really appreciate everyone's time. So like Jeff said, my name's Brett Ender. I work on the business development team at Attune Insurance. A lot of my role is working with prospective and new agencies, making sure that you really feel comfortable with the solution that we're putting out into the marketplace. Something I will tell you is that we've had a lot of really good success all throughout the East Coast, particularly with IMS, and we're really just starting to kind of get our sea legs under you as we roll out together. So I'm personally not a huge fan of decks. So what I did here is I put together just a really nice high-level overview of the product itself. Make sure that you walk away with a good understanding of what our appetite is, how that can help you on the commercial side. So that should only take about 10, 15 minutes. And then after that, I'm going to give you just a quick demo just to show you just the quoting and binding process, the policy issuance process on our system. And I think that you all should walk away having a pretty good understanding of what Attune actually is and what type of solutions that we can provide for you. And we definitely want to make sure that we keep this interactive. So as questions pop up, make sure you write them down, send them in. I want to just make sure that everyone's feeling good by the end of this session and really understands, what Attune is overall. So just to give you all a high-level overview about Attune. So even though Attune would be a new market for your agency to have access to, we're technically not a carrier, right? We're a general agency, so similar to an MGA. So we were created about 2 years ago. And we're a joint venture between 3 companies. So the first company is AIG. The second company is Hamilton Re, which is a reinsurance company out of Bermuda. And then the third company is Two Sigma, which is a data and analytics driven hedge fund based out of New York City. So a lot of the thought process with these 3 companies coming together is that there's a ton of opportunity in the small commercial space from an agency perspective. You see a lot of carriers that are trying to get into the online quoting space, but a lot of the systems right now are pretty time consuming, cumbersome. It's tough to get anyone on the phone, like an underwriter from a servicing perspective. So our company philosophy is like, for a $3,000 BOP, we want you to be able to quote, bind, and issue that policy on the spot. We want you to be able to get that answer right then and there. So if it's a fit, you can go ahead and bind it. And if it's not a fit, you're going to know on the spot. That way we're not really spinning your wheels. A lot of our thought process is just efficiency and trying to do what we can to help you build out your commercial book of business. So you can see this point right here, focus solely on small commercial, right? So what does that mean? So the minimum premium on our products is $450. The average premium size is right around $2,000 to $10,000. But I have seen some policies go as high as $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 too. So we'll walk into that in further detail in a couple minutes. But just to give you kind of what the high level overview is with Attune, we're just trying to do whatever we can to make small commercial insurance easier for you and just help you build out your book of business. So a lot of this slide is some stuff that I went over, right? So, we're really pumped about the opportunity to give you direct access to our product through independent market solutions. This is a product that we created that's really geared towards you, the agent. And we completely have a team of people in-house that are doing what we can to make the entire quoting, binding, issuing experience easier for you. So one thing I will tell you is that, where a lot of different markets are trying to pull out on the East Coast, we're very aggressive and hungry and are doing what we can to grow with more agencies across the country. So I will tell you that Florida, Jersey, North Carolina, Louisiana, these are all states that we're actively looking to add more agencies and would welcome the opportunity to give you all access to our products. So you can see here, competitive commissions, which we'll walk through in a little bit of further detail. Like I mentioned, everything is completely online, right? So, we're totally paperless. So from the quoting process, we don't require any signed accords, applications, supplementals. We're not going to require you to submit over physical loss runs. Everything is done in the system. So if you're able to get a quote, you can bind it and really just keep it efficient from that side of things. In addition to that, we also use an electronic direct billing system, which I'll show you as we go through the quoting process. But everything is completely paperless, just kind of enhancing that theme of that, we don't want you to have to track down paperwork and go back and forth for a small commercial policy. So I think the big takeaway from this call is that we just want to do what we can to give you access to this product and give you another wedge to build out your book. So kind of getting into a little bit of like the product offering, right? What are we actually going to be giving you? What are you going to have access to quote and bind in the system? There's 3 main products on our system right now: business owner's policy, excess liability policy, and then a workers' compensation policy. So the BOP and the excess liability, that's really been our main offering for the last year and a half. I will tell you that both of these products are through AIG subsidiaries. The BOP product is on Blackboard Insurance Company paper, and Blackboard's it's an admitted carrier, it's A-rated, it's a wholly owned subsidiary of AIG. In addition to that, the excess liability is on New Hampshire paper, which is another AIG subsidiary. So with that, it's admitted, A-rated, and that excess liability sits above the BOP, right? So, you know, it'll sit right above the GL. And in the system, I'll show you this, you can customize between $1 to $10 million in capacity to sit above the BOP. So we don't offer any standalone liability yet, but that is something that we're thinking about. And then lastly, this is our most recent product. We do offer workers' comp to you through Employers. So if you don't know Employers is a small business workers' comp specialist based out of Nevada. They're admitted, they're A-rated, and the appetite overlaps very nicely with the current BOP and excess offerings that we have. So our system is set up where, you know, you don't have to bundle the workers' comp with the BOP and the excess. You can offer the BOP and the workers' comp monoline, right? So if you have a client that just needs a workers' comp quote, you can offer that. If you just need a BOP quote, you could do that. If you want the BOP excess comp, you can certainly bundle that together as well. So even though it's all different carriers, we want to make sure that you're starting to get more of that comprehensive solution. So, you know, with that, 3 main products. And I will tell you that, you know, the overall goal with Attune is to become more of a one-stop shop for you, right? So us adding workers' comp is the first step in the right direction, that we want to become more of that one-stop shop. So I would imagine that if you have direct access to Attune, you know, you're going to see a variety of different products added onto our system within the next couple of years. So like I will tell you, you know, more so off the record, that we're working on a habitational product right now, which is set to roll out in 2020, more to go after a lot of the residential apartment opportunities, you know, something that the market has been asking us for. And then we're also working on a second market as well to kind of complement what we have with Blackboard. So a lot of the company philosophy at Attune is that even though we don't have any specific premium or volume requirements for you to hit with us to get appointed, we are very feedback oriented, right? So like a lot of the products that we're looking to add in the future, that's really a result of broker feedback, agent feedback that we get every single day. You know, we're really not in this business to add a bunch of vanilla products that you already have access to through multiple different markets. We want to actually give you a solution to maybe some of the commercial gaps that you currently have, and just give you that streamlined way to bind everything quickly and then efficiently in our system. So BOP, excess, comp, and more to come. I think this slide gives a does a nice job of really highlighting our BOP, excess, comp appetite. You know, one thing that I will tell you is it's a very broad Main Street USA type appetite. So there's ultimately 371 class codes that can fit into our BOP. But if you were to take those 371 class codes, it's about 6 main industry verticals that we quote and bind the most every single day, and which will be the most relevant to you as well. So some of those industries, so we do a lot of mercantile retail business, artisan servicing contractors are big for us. We do a lot of processing and service business, office condos. We do a lot of restaurants, including liquor liability, which I'll walk us through. We have a whole lot of wholesalers and distributors. And then our system also has a niche for admitted coastal property, which is pretty rare for the admitted offering that we have. So, you know, just a high level overview, you know, some of those specific hot classes that come to mind, you know, restaurants with limited cooking, fast food, casual, fine dining, barbershops, beauty parlors, nail salons, dry cleaners. From an office perspective, medical offices, lawyers' offices, insurance agencies, and then also liquor stores, beverage stores, electronic stores, and then some of our bigger, like hotter states, right? So I will tell you that New York right now is our biggest state from a premium perspective. Our prices tend to just be really competitively. So I know no one on the call today is hubbed in New York, but if you happen to have any clients that are in New York, we should be a great fit there. Our second biggest state from a premium perspective is Florida. We've been crushing it with a lot of different IMS agencies in Florida so far. So if there are any Florida agents that are on this call, we'd love to give you access to this. I think we should be a really good fit. We also do a lot in the Carolinas, right? So we do a lot in South Carolina. We do a good amount in North Carolina for those of you that are on the call. I will tell you that this is definitely a state that we're looking to expand into. So we really would love to give you access to this. Louisiana is also a big state for us. That's a top 10 state. And then also New Jersey as well. So like all the states that you're currently in throughout the East Coast, these are states that we really want to grow our book of business and give you access to our products. And our BOP, and just so you're aware, our BOP and excess liability, we're licensed in 46 states with the rest underway. So we're in every single state except for Massachusetts, Connecticut, Hawaii, Alaska, and Washington. So what that means is as soon as you decide that you want to get appointed with us, the day that you're appointed, you're good to write in any of those 46 states. I know this slide's a little bit wordy, but it does a nice job of just kind of giving you some more, like just kind of general information in terms of just BOP guidelines and where we're a fit. So we have some nice TIV capacity, up to 15 mil per account, 7.5 mil location. That's really our target there. In terms of annual sales and revenues, we can go up to $20 million in sales per account, 10 mil per location. The only exception to this is restaurants, which is a little bit smaller. That's 10 mil in sales per account, 5 mil in sales per location. In terms of square footage, we can go up to 50,000 square feet, except for restaurants, 10,000 square feet. We don't have any restrictions on the age of building. For us, we really just care about the updates. Number of stories we're breaking out for you, up to 50 employees. Another important thing is that we do have some light claims capacity, right? So even though we're not going to physically ask you for loss runs, which is a nice time saver, our stance on claims is that we can go up to 3 claims in the last 5 years with no loss exceeding $20,000. So this doesn't include any cat losses, right? That would not count towards the 20K. Another big thing is that, we do a lot of startups and new ventures. As you can see here, continuous coverage required for the last 3 years, unless it's a new venture, which are eligible and we write a ton of. So what I'm thinking there are any startup restaurants, retail stores, contractors. Like this is all stuff to be thinking of us for as you start to think about what we could be a fit for. In terms of vacancy, light vacancy capacity, we can go up to 30% vacancy in regards to the total square footage. And then another big thing is hours of operation. So on all 370 classes that we offer, the businesses have to be closed by 1 a.m. We can't make any exceptions on that. All right. So
hey, Brett, we've got 2 questions here.
Yes.
So the first one is, can the excess liability go over other carriers' BOP?
So it can't go over any other carrier's BOP. We don't have that unsupported excess product. That's definitely something that we've had conversations to add. So for now, it has to sit above the Attune BOP product, but it can sit over any other carrier's commercial auto product as long as it's A-rated.
All right, and the last question is, any plans for growth in Mississippi?
Yeah, so Mississippi, I'll tell you right now, so Mississippi is a state that we're licensed in. We see business there, but we don't see a ton of business. It's a state that we would love to grow in, particularly in the Southeast. So if you're licensed there, as soon as you get appointed, you're good to start quoting and binding in Mississippi that day. So yeah, we would love to grow there.
All right, we just got one more. On a BOP, is there a water exclusion?
There's not water exclusion on the BOP.
All right, that's all the questions we have for now.
All right, perfect. Yeah, just stop me if there's anything else or if you think I'm going too fast. So
one more.
It. Okay.
Do you write property in South Louisiana? They listed a specific parish.
Like church, as in a church?
No, like a region.
No, so we do we definitely do write property in Southern Louisiana. And just to be totally transparent with you, it's about 5 minutes to a quote, and Louisiana is a huge state for us. I found that some brokers in South Louisiana, they'll say, hey, your pricing was incredible. And then for some LROs, they'll say that our pricing was a little bit high. So like we do a lot of South Louisiana business. From what I've seen, it's kind of hit or miss. So we definitely could win with you, but there might also be some cases where our pricing might be a little bit high. It's one of those things where you just got to get in there early on and test out a bunch of quotes in South Louisiana and really see what classes resonate well. And if you want to see any specific top class codes in regions in South Louisiana or anywhere else across the country, we can send that to you too, just to give you more targeted looks.
All right, we've got a couple more questions coming in.
Yep.
Can we get an email on eligibility and product info, target classes, etc.?
Yeah, we have all that. So if they send you the email address, I can directly send them that information.
Sure, so we can follow up with that. And then absolutely. Does the excess sit over the EL?
It does. The excess does sit over the EL. Okay.
And then is non-owned and hire auto available on BOP?
So we do offer a hire to not owned auto enhancement on our BOP product. I'll show you this little checkbox that you select as a throw-in coverage. And that's available on all of our classes unless they're doing delivery. If there's any type of delivery exposure, then that's just not going to be a fit for the BOP from what I've seen.
All right. We will keep going and I'll hold the rest of these questions for when we get a little further in the presentation.
All right, perfect. So I will, I'll try and breeze through these slides so we can get to the good stuff, which is the quoting. But I definitely just wanted to make sure that we hit in on our restaurants appetite as well, just because this is really the big go-to industry class that I like to market when you're starting to get a better sense of what Attune does. So restaurants is the one class, the one industry class that we have that's rated off of annual sales. The premium is going to be really built off of what the revenues are each year. So we can go up to 10 mil in revenues per account and then 5 mil in revenues per location. I know I mentioned this before, but we can go up to 10,000 square feet. But we have a nice broad list of restaurants that we can do. So, full service restaurants, casual dining, sit down, so like a diner, a bistro, a cafe. We do have a full list of limited cooking class codes, so like a cafe, a donut shop, a salad bar, certain types of fast food pizzerias. We also do a lot of fast food franchise type risks as well. So like in particular, where I've seen us buying, we've bound strings of Taco Bells, Dunkin' Donuts, KFC. We don't have a great appetite for McDonald's and Burger King, just so you're all aware. We definitely do burger shops. It's just those two franchises we're not a fit for. So if you do have a lot of franchisees, that's great to send over to us. We can include EPLI on a lot of the restaurants that we do, and then we also have a cyber enhancement that you can throw on as well. Liquor liability is also a big thing that we like to advertise with our restaurants. There's an option to include liquor liability on every restaurant that you're quoting with Attune. And in terms of liquor receipts, we do have a class code that can go up to 50% liquor receipts on casual dining, and then also 75% liquor receipts on fine dining, right? So, white tablecloth fine dining restaurant, really high-end wine, bourbon, liquor that might be $300 a bottle. Our admitted product makes sure that we're actually capturing what that looks like. And then, 50% on casual is nice too. So what I typically say there is that, even though we're not going to be a fit for a straight up sports bar or a bar, if it's a primary restaurant that happens to have a little bit of a bar component to it, our product's a great fit for that. And then the big things that kick out some restaurants that we see, I know I just touched on it, but bars, taverns, nightclubs, dance floors, stages, that typical type of live entertainment we're not a fit for. So I will tell you that if you have a restaurant, maybe like with a small live band, live music, as long as there's no dancing or dance floor, we can still write that. We just want to make sure that we're avoiding the dance floor, club, bar type exposure. But all in all, this is a huge industry vertical that we'd love to try and take a look at for you. Artisan Contractors, I wanted to make sure that we touch on that as well. Big question right off the bat that I get is, hey, can you guys do monoline GL? the product has to be on our BOP. We don't have a monoline GL product at this time, but I will tell you that a lot of our agents basically rig our BOP product to feel like a monoline GL. So what they do is they go in and they quote the general liability limit, they put in 0 for the property, and then they just throw in a little bit of contents, and the pricing is competitive with any other GL product. Big thing there is that we do a lot of new ventures for contractors, so that's something that's been very competitive for us. And really, what we're not a fit for on contractors is that we can't do any GCs or roofers, but we do a lot of Main Street artisans, right? So electricians, plumbers, painters, HVAC, landscaping services, drywall installation. This is all stuff that we're quoting and binding every single day. And like I said before, I've seen some smaller contractors go as low as $450. Our sweet spot on contractors for us is really in like that $1,000 to $10,000 premium range. And this is probably more relevant to any of the Jersey agents that are on the call. We do a ton of Jersey contractors. We just can't do any contractors that perform work in the 5 boroughs of New York, Long Island, Westchester. So if they're a Jersey domiciled contractor and they're out of these areas, totally okay. But if they are doing any work in those areas, that's typically when we wouldn't be a fit for the risk. And then and last thing to note is that we do include a Contractors Enhancement form on every contractor quote that you get, and that'll give you the blanket AI, waiver of subrogation, primary non-contributory, like a lot of that traditional wording that you'd like to see on your contractors forms. But in particular, we do a ton of artisans in Florida, Louisiana. We're starting to do a lot more in the Carolinas as well, and obviously like South Jersey, Central Jersey too. Moving along, wanted to make sure that we touch on our commercial LROs, because this is something that I probably get the most questions about out of any class code that we offer. Big things to keep in mind there. In terms of eligibility, we want to just make sure that the LROs fit our BOP class codes. And secondly, we want to just make sure that it's 100% commercial owned building, right? So if you have an LRO that's mixed use, maybe the commercial operation on the first floor, some apartments and tenants on the second floor, that unfortunately will not be a fit. But like I did say before, we are working on a HAB product, which should roll out in 2020. So you'll have access to that too. In terms of how these LROs are actually being rated, we're rating them off of the largest tenant by square footage. Unless there's a restaurant in the building, the restaurant code will be used regardless of total size. So just to give you some more insight, like we're in terms of LROs, we do a lot of strip malls and shopping centers in Florida and throughout the East Coast, commercial office buildings, contractors' offices, retail stores, any LRO that fits the BOP class codes that are eligible, that's something that we would love to write with you. And I've seen some LROs go as high as $60,000 in premium too. So we'll definitely do that small stuff for you all day long, but just know that if you start to get some larger buildings, we can be creative over here. And then last couple Main Street classes, I know that this is pretty vanilla and a lot of carriers are soliciting this business from you, but in terms of professional offices and office condos, our rates have been very, very competitive on the East Coast. And a lot of Main Street office exposures, right? So doctors' offices, medical offices, lawyers, accountants, etc. That's all stuff that we can throw onto our BOP. You're quoting and binding it in 5 minutes. You're direct billing the client and then just getting it off your desk, move on to the next one. We also do a ton of retail and wholesale distributors. We have over 100 class codes just for these two alone. Some particular ones that come to mind with that, liquor stores, clothing stores, sporting goods, florists, bookstores, gift shops, all that. We do tend to be really competitive on retail wholesale because we're not rating these off of annual sales. We're rating them off the BPP or the contents. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then the last one that we want to hit in on, right, is processing and service. So, what does that mean? So all the salon class codes, so nail salons, hair salons, beauty parlors, barbershops, funeral homes, laundromats, dry cleaning, copy and printing. We'll write that stuff all day long for you. I will mention that particularly with any of these salons and barbershops, we can include the professional liability on that too. There's literally just a little box that you'll check and you get that throw-in coverage for those. And then the very last thing from an appetite perspective that I love to talk about is coastal capacity for an admitted market, right? So I just included a really quick chart for some of our more coastal exposed states and what our distance requirements look like. So you can see here for Florida, we have no distance requirements for non-frame buildings. So what that means is we can literally get right next to the water, quote it, bind it, put it onto an admitted BOP, and include the wind on there. So we're not writing anything X wind, we're giving you the wind deductible within the quote. So you can see here, Florida, no distance requirements. Frame, it has to be up to 2 miles. Texas, no distance requirements. South Carolina, no distance requirements. North Carolina, as you can see, no distance requirements for non-frame and frame. Alabama, very competitive. Mississippi, for that agent that asked before, we do a lot. We want to do more coastal Mississippi business. Those Louisiana agents that are on the phone, no distance requirements, and then within a mile for frame. Georgia, and then I didn't put this on here, but for New Jersey and New York, there's no distance requirements for non-frame and frame. So if there's any agents that are looking to do more Jersey Shore coastal business, Point Pleasant, Asbury Park, Atlantic City, we don't see a ton of submissions in those areas, but our pricing is very competitive. So, a great recommendation would be to start to just go after some of those businesses and pop it into the Attune system and see how the pricing shakes out for you.
Hey, Brett, we've got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Can you exclude MedPay on restaurants?
MedPay, I actually don't know off the top of my head, but I can easily check with underwriting and get back to you on that.
Sounds good.
MedPay.
Once we quote in the system, is it locked for anyone else to quote the same client?
Yeah, so we don't, our stance right now is that we don't block on any quotes. It's really just first to bind. So we don't block on quotes.
Okay. Is primary and non-contributory available in Florida?
I'm 90% sure that it is. I will just double check on that. If you could send me that agent's name, I can send them over the answer, but I'm 90% sure that it is. I just want to double check.
Sure. And then for Artisan Contractors, do you tract homes?
We do not.
All right. That's all that we've got for now.
Cool. Sorry, I'm just writing down some of those questions. Cool. So that was my big thing from an appetite perspective. I don't want to go too into the weeds with the guidelines, but my biggest takeaway from this slideshow is that it's a very broad Main Street USA style appetite. So a lot of those mom and pop style businesses that are local to you in neighboring towns, they should be a great fit for our BOP and workers' comp product. We do have the type of system that I'll show you. It's not the type of system where you're going to have to answer a bunch of questions and then get approval from an underwriter. This is the type of system where you have full authority to bind the policy, issue the policy, and have control over that entire servicing process too. So that's the big thing. So what I'm thinking about is if you're an agent that's on the phone and you're already doubling down on commercial, maybe you're 80% commercial, 20% personal lines, I know right off the bat, this is going to be a great fit for you. This is stuff that you're going to be hitting in on all day if you're doing those smaller BOPs and smaller packages. But also, if there's any agents on the line that are maybe more personal lines focused and they've really been looking for an easy way to break into commercial, I think that our market's going to be a great fit for you. Like I said before, we don't have any premium requirements. We don't have any volume requirements. Really what we want is we want to get you in the system, get you quoting consistently, and then just solicit any feedback that you have. We do have a full team of servicing underwriters that sit in our office. So that's a perfect resource for you. If you have any questions on forms, coverages, if you're not as in the weeds with BOP and you're still just trying to get your feet wet, our team is definitely going to be able to support you. So any personal lines agents, we would definitely love to have you, and I definitely recommend that try us out and see what you think. So with that, so that pretty much covers the deck portion. I'm sure IMS will make this available for you if you want to see this in further detail. But what I'd love to do is, instead of just telling you about the system, how easy it is, I just think it's a lot more powerful if I actually show you what the quoting process looks like. So when you agree that you actually want to sign up with Attune, we'll go ahead and create usernames and passwords for you and anyone else on your team that would actually be in the system quoting. So make sure that you specify that to IMS. Don't just send over one username. If you need more than one username, we can definitely get those created for you. So once you're set up, we'll just hit the sign in button. And the first page you're kicked to is the main account page right here. So as you start to build out your book of business with Attune, it's going to give you your full list of accounts on the left-hand side. So these are a bunch of demo accounts. This is the company account that we typically use for training sessions like this. But if you click on this account, for example, Burger Up, it's going to give you some of the insured's billing details right here, their payment status since we're using the direct billing system, and then you can see any in-force policies and then quotes that are associated with that account. This might be a more useful function for your accounting teams, but we did, if you click on this $, we also added a payment and an invoicing tab. So since we are direct billing the insured, we want to just make sure that you have complete control into that billing process. But basically, the purpose of this is we don't want you to have to worry about tracking down invoices, worrying about cancellations for non-pay. We want to just give you full insight into that. So anything that's been colored green and paid means that it's been paid, obviously, no additional work necessary. Anything that's blue that says billed means that the invoice has been recently sent out, but they haven't had the chance to pay it yet. And then there's also an option here that's going to be colored red, and that's just going to show you any payment that's delinquent, at risk of cancellation, and you can kind of use that as a wedge to reach out to the client and make sure that they're getting in there and making payment. So I'll walk us through what the billing process looks like at the end of the quote, but just know that you have this billing tab. Another thing that we love to show off is this support tab right here. It's a little orange life raft. If you click on it, it just gives you a bunch of information. This is going to be really useful to a lot of the newer agents like you that are going to just have questions in terms of how we're doing business, right? And we understand the fact that we're an online market. It's different than a lot of the traditional submit to an underwriter systems, right? So we want to make sure that we're giving you all the information in the system. So, down here, you just have some general FAQs, policy issuance, billing, underwriting questions, appetite, claims, eligibility, all stuff like that you can find here. We do have a fully servicing customer care team that sits in our home office in New York City. They're available live every day from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday and Friday. And I will tell you that even though we advertise 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., if you send in a request after hours, we should have at least 1 or 2 people that are available. But 3 main ways to get in contact with the care team. You can email them at help@attuneinsurance.com. You could call them at this 888 number. And then the preferred method for a lot of our brokers is just to use this chat feature right here. So, I would think of the care team for any quick transactional questions, right? So, billing questions, endorsement requests. If you're having difficulty finding the right class code in our underwriting guidelines, they'll make themselves available. So, we've gotten great feedback on them, especially for an online system. If we're doing everything in a self-service way, we need to make sure that we're actually giving you the underwriting resources available, because sometimes you need to just pick up the phone and talk to someone and get that whole situation sorted out too. So just all stuff to keep in mind.
Hey, Brett, we've got one question here.
Yeah.
It's from a Florida agent. It says, we have a direct contract with employers, with employers, and they've told us they do not write contractors. Is that different in this program?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So that's the big discrepancy between the BOP and the workers' comp appetite. So for BOP, we do a ton of contractors, like I just mentioned, but that's probably employers' biggest no-go, is that they cannot do any contractors for the workers' comp. So any contractors, we could write the BOP and the excess, but you'd have to go secure coverage elsewhere for the comp.
And we've got a lot of requests over here for the presentation, so I will be sure to follow up after the webinar, make sure we send a copy of that to everyone.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think with that, I've done a lot of talking. I want to just show you what the system actually looks like, right? So you have a new submission from a client. What does that look like in the system? So the first thing is that, I know I've said this 5 times already, but when you receive a new submission, you don't need to send us over any accords, applications, things like that. So whatever you want to keep for your own records, your own E&O, please feel free to do so, but we're not going to require you to submit over anything to us. So from there, we'll hit the plus new button, and then we'll go in and actually create the account, which will allow us to get our quote on the particular account. So for this, I will do IMS Restaurant, organization type, corporation, and then this is where we can choose our class of business. So if I chose an ineligible class of business, it would decline it, but we do a ton of pizzerias, so that's the class that I chose here. Cool. So our account's created. We have some of the insured's contact information. If we need to make any edits to that account, we can do so. But from there, we can go ahead and get our BOP quote and our workers' comp quote if we want. So I will choose the BOP quote. This page right here, some of those underwriting guidelines that we walk through on the deck, this is something brokers ask for. They just wanted to see some of those underwriting guidelines pulled into the system before they go through the quoting process. We do have the type of system where even if you're entering in ineligible information, it's going to decline that and filter it out for you. So even if, say you don't have the opportunity to read through this, the system is still going to be able to filter that out. But, there's a couple things that we went over, right? Our stance on claims, 3 claims in the last 5 years, 20,000 total incurred. They cannot be open past 1 a.m., catering. So a lot of that general information. If you need to add any additional locations, you would do so down below. We don't have any restrictions on number of locations. We just care about TIV, so 15 mil per account, 7.5 mil per location. Number of employees. You can see that it's GPS right to the location right there. And then what the system is just doing in those first 2 screens, it's pulling from a lot of different third-party data sources, right? So it's taking in crime score, distance to the coast, health inspection scores, OSHA violations, basically just a lot of different data sources, which is determining whether or not the account's eligible for our guidelines. So, say there was something that just happened to be in a really high crime rated area where the average crime score was 5 times higher than the daily average, you would just get a declination right on the spot. And that's really goes to that theme of instant feedback. So, you're not going to go through the whole quoting process just to get a declination. You're going to know right then and there whether or not the account's a fit. Excuse me. So we'll choose a limited cooking restaurant, and then we'll classify it, pizza shop. So this feature is a nice feature for a lot of our brokers. In a lot of instances, if we have the data, the system can pull in the building limit, the construction type, the number of stories, the square footage, and the year built too. So instead of you having to juggle around accords, our data sets are pulling that information in. Common question that I get that I'm sure a lot of you are going to have is, hey, what if I have different information that the client submitted than what you're pulling? Our company stance on that is always go with the information that the client's giving you, because they just might have something that's a little bit more updated than what we have. And these values are, you can change them at any time. So say that restaurant is just a tenant, they don't own the building, we'll put in 0. We'll put the BPP at 50,000. The sales, 1 million. The liquor sales, 100,000. And like I mentioned before, we don't have any restrictions on age of building. Really what we care about are the updates. And then last page of property coverage, utility services. And I'm just trying to show you how the different limits that are available, because everything here is self-service for you. The less that you have to reach out to customer care, the more efficient this whole process is going to be. Would you like to add wind coverage, yes or no? It is important to note that wind coverage is required for Florida, New York, Louisiana, Texas. But since this is New Jersey, we will not be adding any wind coverage. Equipment breakdown, yes or no? Spoilage. I know we only give you the option up to $50,000 here, but if you reach out to our customer care team and chat them, they can actually increase this up to $100,000 in limits, I believe. Additional debris removal. And now next page, we're getting into the GL portion of this, right? So GL, we offer up to 1.2 and 2.4. And then that excess product that I mentioned, which is through the carrier in New Hampshire that sits above the BOP, if you would like that, you would just choose yes, and we'll select the limit on the next screen. Medical expenses, damage to premises rented to you, we can go up to $1 million. Employee benefits liability coverage. Employee dishonesty limit. And then I mentioned the EPLI and cyber. So if you'd like that, you can select your limits of up to $250K. And then that cyber enhancement, a little bit smaller, it's up to $100,000 in limits. You know, still nice to be able to offer that though to your client. And then of course the option to include liquor liability up to $1 million. And then I mentioned this earlier, but you know, our contractors enhancement includes blanket AI. But for now, if there's any other additional insured for the different class codes, you would just enter that in down below. And then since we selected yes to excess, this is where we can choose between $1 to $10 million. And I know that there was a question on this earlier. We can't offer it standalone. It has to sit above the BOP and the GL right now. But it can also drop in for any other EL coverage and commercial auto coverage with a different carrier. And the only limitation is we just want to make sure that the other carriers or A-rated carriers are better. And then from there, we're gonna just let the system kind of pull in all this information, and we'll wait to get a quote on this. And then, you know, we do have a lot of engineers and tech people in our office, and they wanted to add this little game for you while you wait. You can click on these policies and try and get a high score. And we are starting to send out prizes and Amazon gift cards for that too. So.
Well, Brett, while we're waiting, I've got a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
Does the employee count include owners?
It does include owners, yes.
Okay. Is additional insured completed operations available for contractors? It's a Florida question.
It is available for contractors, yes.
And then the last one, what is the commission to the agency?
So, the commission to the agency is going to be paid by IMS, but I know that for BOP and excess, it's 16% new business, 15% renewal for the BOP and the excess. And then the workers' comp is 10% on new business and 8% on renewal business.
All right, that's all the questions we've got for right now.
All right, cool. Yeah, so in that 30 seconds or so while we're answering those questions, we have our quote generated right here. You know, it's about $5,000 in total premium. So, you know, there's two documents that are generated. One is just the application input, which is something that our brokers ask for. It's good for your E&O. This is going to give you a summary of all the limits that you actually selected on the system. So if you want to keep this for your own records, this might be a good document as well. So let me just scroll through a little bit. You know, the locations that you entered, the specific limits, coverages, liability. So you have this for your records, just so you know. And then we also have the quote letter, which downloads right on the spot as a PDF document. And as you can see here, you know, pretty standard clean quote letter. We have our payment options broken out right here, which I'll walk everyone through as we go through the billing system. Premium summary. And if anyone wants to see a test like a specimen version of this quote, we can email that out after the call. We do have a couple different class-specific enhancements that we throw into all of our quotes. So since we quoted a restaurant, we do have a restaurant enhancement, which is going to give you a bunch of throw-in coverages. We have that contractor-specific enhancement. We have an LRO-specific enhancement, and then we just have a BOP-specific enhancement in general. So say, say you review this with the client, it looks good to go, you want to bind. If you want to play around with limits, deductibles, things like that, you can hit the edit button and simply create a second version of the quote. But if the client wants to go ahead and bind this one, I'll show you what the binding process looks like. We'll press the continue to bind button. And since we are using the direct billing system, this email box is important, right? So whatever email you put in to this, that's going to be the email address that sent the invoice. So if you have the insured's email address, great, enter that in. If you need to pay on behalf of the insured, you could also just put in your own email address too. And so from there, we're going to confirm the effective date. Do we want to bind with excess, yes or no? Oh, I need to make sure I put in the phone number. And then there's 3 payment options that we're offering on the BOP, right? There's a 1-pay, there's a 4-pay, which is a down payment and then 3 separate installments. And then there's also a 10-pay too, which is a down payment, 9 separate installments. But with either option that you choose for a payment, all we're going to do is press bind quote. And what's going to happen is that we're going to generate the policy for you as a PDF again. We don't email the policy to the insured. We give you the control to be able to do that. And then after you hit bind, the insured is going to be sent that invoice, and they'll go ahead, click on the invoice, and they can pay that invoice online via credit card, debit card, or ACH banking credentials. So even from a payment perspective, everything is very paperless and online. So that way you're not worried about having to chase down paper checks back and forth. We would rather just bill the client, CC you on all of our correspondence with them, make sure that you're in the loop, and just have it enforce from there.
Looks like we got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Does utility interruption include overhead transmission lines?
I know that it does, and we could also send them the specific form where they're going to get that, because I get asked that question a lot in Florida.
Okay. On workers' comp, can you have just the owner with no other employees?
Yes, they can.
And then do you know how competitive your rates are in Florida?
And okay, so just to be totally transparent, I'm not just trying to say this as a blanket statement. Our rates are incredibly competitive in Florida. We beat out guard all the time down there. Really what I've seen our product useful for in Florida is on these small policies, something that you might have to send E&S package based on the coastal component. You can put it onto our admitted BOP, so you're getting the better coverage, you're getting the BI to be actual loss sustained. But then at the same time, you're getting the pricing what the insured is really looking for. So, there's a reason why out of all the states in the country, Florida is our second biggest state. So I'm really confident that if you're going after that commercial small business, we're going to be an awesome fit.
Got another one here. If your agency pays the down payment and enters their email address, how will the other invoices be sent? Will it be by email or regular mail?
So all the invoices we send, even after the down payment, everything's sent electronically via email. A good point to that is for the 4-pay and the 10-pay, you can actually check a box and set it up to auto pay. So that way the client doesn't have to go in 9 different times and enter in the invoice. They can just, pay it once, and then each time throughout the policy period, the money will withdraw. So let me see, no. I wanted to pull up a sample invoice, but I actually don't have one on me right now. But yeah, so everything's done electronically through email.
All right. Is there a way to get the underwriting questions asked in the system in a format that a producer can collect the data ahead of time, something like a blank application?
Yeah, so we actually, we haven't had this before, but we actually just created our own version of an application, and I can send that to you as well. That's specific to our BOP product, if that's what he or she is asking.
Okay, and then are you competitive in coastal North Carolina?
Yeah, so I will tell you right off the bat that coastal North Carolina is probably our biggest differentiator throughout the state. If you have any inland North Carolina business, first of all, we would love to take a look at it. I've just seen that there's, every carrier wants the inland North Carolina business. So, would love to take a look at it, but coastal North Carolina, all that stuff that's within 1,000 feet of the water, coastal restaurants, retail stores, contractors, strip malls, that's all stuff that that we have over 30% hit ratios on, and would love to take a look at it for you.
That is all the questions we've got right now.
Cool. And yeah, and to that point, I mean, those are really the big things that I wanted to hit on today. Is there anything else that I haven't covered that you think would be good for me to walk through?
I think we did a really good overview here. I've got a lot of questions. Here's another one, I think, related to the North Carolina question,
Okay.
which is it 1,000 feet or not in North Carolina?
It is right next to the water, so it's within 1,000 feet, so it's closer than that.
All right, and then we've got a question on how to get signed up, which we're going to send a follow-up message to everybody here on the presentation that includes information about IMS and getting started, as well as the presentation, because we've gotten a lot of requests for the presentation.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, even though your producer code with Attune is going to be through IMS, we're going to be working really closely together. So I work with all new IMS appointed agencies. So if you're on this call and you want to get signed up, you and I will definitely touch base at some point. And I know I did mention the great servicing team that we have that you'll have access to, but I do know that since you're going through IMS, we're also going to give you your own assigned underwriter too. So you'll have the best of both worlds, right? So once you're feeling good, you'll be able to bind your own quotes in the system. You'll also have our servicing team, and then you'll also have your own underwriter too. So you'll have all those resources at your fingertips.
All right, looks like we've got a couple more questions coming in. How are endorsements handled?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the endorsements are actually, we ultimately want it to give you the ability to control the endorsement requests. We're not there yet. So if you have an endorsement in the middle of the policy period, just send them to help@attuneinsurance.com right here, and our servicing team will be able to process that for you. And the typical turnaround time with endorsements is less than 24 hours. So we definitely pride ourselves on being able to get it back to you, normally the same day, and then sometimes it's the day after.
All right, and then who are the joint companies again? They've got AIG, Hamilton, and they're missing the third.
Yeah, so the last company is 2 Sigma, TWO space SIGMA, and in the finance world, they're a really well-known hedge fund based out of New York City. They actually have over $60 billion assets under management, and they have a very data and analytics driven approach to the way that they trade in the marketplace. So when we were created, 2 Sigma basically said, hey, can we combine the data and analytics capabilities that we have with the underwriting expertise of a Hamilton Re and an AIG, and see what we can do in that small commercial segment.
All right, and it looks like we've got an IMS specific question here, and I see that we've got Kim Edgar joining us. So Kim, I'm going to try to unmute you here, and hopefully you're able to answer this question. How long does it take to get appointed and get login and get started quoting?
Once we get the paperwork from you, we get it over to Attune immediately, and the turnaround for Attune is usually within, Brett, tell me if I'm overspeaking, but within a day or two, you're usually set up with a user ID and a password and on its way. The key will be is if your agency is appointed with IMS already, then we just need some updated information to get the information over to Attune. If you're an FAIA member that's not appointed with IMS yet, then you need to go through the whole process of the application online.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, so to Kim's point, the day that they send in that request to IMS is incredible at just sending that over to us really quickly. And then from the second that we get it, we're turning around logins typically within a day to 2 days max.
Awesome. Well, I want to make sure that we stay respectful of everybody's time. We've got this webinar scheduled till 12 o'clock, and it looks like we're coming up on 11:56. So I'm going to take all the questions that we've gotten. A lot of people have sent in their email addresses, and we do have the list of everybody who's participating on this webinar. So we'll be sure to follow up with the presentation. If anybody's got any last-minute questions, if you want to go ahead and send those our way, I think we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. All right, I'm not seeing any last questions coming through. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. Thank you, Brett, for the presentation, and Kim for jumping in to answer those questions. Appreciate everybody's time, and we'll be following up via email. Thank you again.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Yeah.